And we have additional staff here if you have any questions for them as well.
Thank you, Adam. Councilor Graham.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to catch you while you were here, Adam, before you had to sit down and then get back up. I'll have other comments later, but so if you can go back to the slide about the SUPs that have been approved. Okay, so of the 16, all 16 were essentially approved.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Graham, that is correct. All of it have been approved except for that one.
Okay.
We do have more kind of lined up, if you will, but they're either waiting for additional documentation that staff needs, because it does take some doing on their part in order to get their special use permit ready for public meeting. Additionally, some are also waiting to see if the amendment happens, then they don't have to do a special use permit, essentially.
Right. But in spirit, through the actions of the P&Z and of this council, the 300-foot buffer has essentially not been existing. We've essentially been regulating this without the buffer based on appeals and approvals of SUPs.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Graham, these are only a few of these of the proposed cannabis retail or cannabis micro businesses that have come before us. A lot of them, they'll just go try to find another place. So
Okay.
this 16 or whatever it is, those are just people that said, you know what, this is it. We're going to go for it. We're going to try our best. We've got to get our SUP approved here. And
Okay.
those are the 16, ma'am.
And those were 100% approved anyway.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Graham, I believe the vast majority were approved unanimously. There's one or two, well, twice where we had one person voting.
Oh,
against it.
I'm sorry, I misspoke, not speaking to how the votes broke down, but all 16 of them passed,
That is
for
correct.
want of a better term. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilor Graham. Councilor Flores.
Thank you for your presentation. I don't know where to begin on this, but there's a distinct discriminatory language here. Single mixed family, but not multi-family dwelling. That's discriminatory. I don't know if it falls under any classification of a protected class, but first glance here, it doesn't make sense to me. Secondly, being that there's so many areas out besides the residential area, being that there's so many shopping malls and shopping this and, you know, all these little mini malls or whatever they're called, strip malls, why do we need to have a business right in the middle of a residential area and single family? And I haven't heard from my constituents in the East Mesa, but I don't know if my colleagues here have heard from their constituents, but I don't understand why we would have a business right in the middle of a residential area. I don't expect you to answer it, but that's one of the concern. It's a concern I have. The other, of course, is a single family and not that. And I know that I am aware of Airbnbs throughout the city, and I know that it has taken away a lot of revenue from our lodgers, our hotels and whatnot. So and then there's also like home care facilities in my district. I know of one, I know of 2 Airbnbs. I'm sure there's more. But it's not, and for the Airbnbs, I have to say, I think that the city has to do something. This is just an aside, but I think we need to start collecting tax money from the Airbnbs. You know, that's an aside, but something to, you know, put that in your pipe and smoke it, no pun intended. But I think that the most distressing part here, and I am not in any way morally or legally opposed to the use of cannabis in any way, shape, or form. Well, maybe the form of smoking is bad because any smoke in your lungs is bad. But I don't, this is not a very, it's not acceptable to have that. Do we have, do we have, what's it called, when you have a strip mall and you have clauses in the agreement, because I believe they're owned by one person, and in the strip mall, the stores are leased by the tenant. Is that correct?
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Flores, that's typically what happens.
Okay, so are there no competition clauses in those? Because it seems to me that a business such as cannabis could be, say, at the Mesilla Valley Mall, or it could be on the many strip malls. Oh my God, I don't know where that came from. Maybe because it was joint and strip and joint as in, smoking a joint. But the strip malls, so we have the strip malls, and why can't they go there? Are there restrictions? Are there no competitive clauses? But I just find it very distressing. I am not at all, I think everybody knows, I am not at all anti-cannabis consumption in any way, shape, or form, except smoking, which is bad for your lungs. But yeah, I don't understand that part. So are there restrictive covenants in our strip malls?
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Flores, we see multiple things in our dealings with our weekly meetings that we have, where there was a gentleman who owned a strip mall, like you said before. He actually would be okay allowing multiple cannabis businesses to be located on the property. Then there was one where he said where they entered into a lease agreement with somebody, and they said, nope, mine will be the only one in your strip mall, and he said, and that's how they wrote up. It really depends on how that agreement is written between the leaser and the leasee, really, to be quite honest with you. And then just to touch back on the single-family residential, so the special use permits that we've taken forward for the buffer requirement from a single-family residential are along major thoroughfares. They're on Main Street. The four that come to mind that we did a special use permit for were on Main Street, which is basically one of our busiest streets along Las Cruces. But literally right behind them is single-family zoning, because it's just commercial. They don't affect the residential properties, to the west or east of them or south or north of them. They have direct access to commercial to Main Street only, but because they're literally right next door, just right across the street, they need to do a special use permit.
And I think you're referring the one that we overturned, the P&Z decision, on the one where people came in from Tutti Bambini and that area, and we did overturn that decision, that finding. So, but this is different. And the fact that it's not acceptable to me at all to discriminate between single-family residential and multi-dwelling businesses. I don't understand that part at all, but I don't think I don't know, maybe Dr. Pitts has the answer.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Flores, Tim Pitts, Deputy Director for Community Development. We actually agree with you 100% on the issue of the single-family residential and multifamily residential, that if you're not going to approve to get rid of the buffer for single-family residential, then we're going to recommend you apply it to multifamily as well, that it's one or the other. We shouldn't be picking and choosing which type of family gets a buffer. So we're in agreement, I think, with what you seem to be saying here, that's what we're going to recommend to you.
Well, why would you propose this and then expect us to go back to the drawing board for you? And yeah, and it's, no, yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Flores, we are asking you to remove what we believe to be an inequitable rule in the code.
Oh, you're talking about the 300-foot issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that I understand. What I'm addressing, Dr. Pitts, is the fact that there's a discriminatory application here as to single dwellings and multi-family dwellings. Did I not read it correctly?
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Flores, we do not propose to allow cannabis facilities in any residential districts whatsoever. That's not one of our recommendations.
But you're saying to eliminate the 300-foot, which means that it opens it up to, next door.
What we're saying is that currently,
And they could, and someone could use this and say that,
Council, right now, if you were to take, let's say, one of these buildings just maybe a couple of 100 feet to our north, they all are within 300 feet of residential. Everything from that CVS up is